What's up, pretty gang? It's your favorite nail tech, Peaches. Welcome back to my channel. As promised, you guys voted, you wanted to see an in detail acrylic French tip tutorial, and that's what we're bringing today. Okay, so here we are. As you can see, we're doing a pink on pink. It came out absolutely gorgeous. I initially did not intend to record it, but once I started, I was like, let me go ahead and record. Okay, like that's the type of time we're on. So of course, our subscriber for today, Real Black Girl 2, and you guys make sure you're subscribed, notifications on, because if the notifications is off, how the hell are you gonna know when I'm uploading? All right, so I definitely have multiple French tip videos on my channel and tutorials. I actually take pride in the fact that I feel like my Frenches are really good, like consistently good with polish or acrylic. So as soon as I laid that first bead to do the smile line on the index finger, I was like, I gotta record. All right, so of course prep and everything is done. This color is Candy Yum Yum for the base, and so what we're doing is we are establishing our smile line. Okay, now keep in mind, you guys, I do have to go back to work. I have to leave in about 5-10 minutes, so the voiceover is going to be pieced together. So if you have I mean, if you're noticing any, my voice sounds different here or there, that's because it probably might. Okay, so first things first, like I said, we are establishing the smile line. So basically what this consists of is getting the right bead to make that smile line, the right shape, the right size, the right length, everything. Okay, so as you can see, this client has larger nail beds. Okay, now if you want a more in-depth video on specific tips for larger nail beds, please see the last video I posted. Actually, it's doing really well. A lot of you guys have already watched it, and I'm really hoping that helped you, and it should help you with this as well. Okay, so what I'm doing is deciding to, instead of like, okay, here's the thing. When people tend to do short nails, they tend to do just a completely kind of like a circular smile line. For me personally, I like to do something that has like more of like a tapered shape to it, because the fact that they are short and her nail beds are, on the larger side, it's gonna look stubby, it's gonna look wide, and what we don't want is to have a wide looking French tip. Okay, it's gonna look like those old school French tips people used to get that were not the most flattering. Okay, so what I did is go ahead and lay the base down, let it kind of settle for a second, which is what you saw before I started sculpting it, match it to the right size and the shape, and then I will go ahead in with my cuticle bead and I'll go ahead and lay that down. Now in this particular instance, I did it in 2 separate beads just because she also is a client that has extra like cuticle area skin, which I do have videos on my channel that address how to work with clients that do have extra skin in their cuticle area, because what you guys are seeing is the product of after I've prepped and removed most of it. However, I still need to tuck this product really far back, as you guys are seeing me kind of clean it up, because we don't want it flooded, but we do have to see how I'm really in there and making sure that I'm tucking it but not flooding it. And that is because when I file around the cuticles and I do the finishing filing, what's going to happen is more of her skin is going to file off, and not in a way that's painful or anything. It's dead skin, but I don't nip the cuticles because I'm in California and it's actually illegal to do so. Like, that's not a thing we're supposed to be doing, and I abide by all like my state guidelines and rules. There's also no reason to nip the cuticles when there's instances like this, and I feel like that will cause potential damage or harm. Okay, so once again, I'm laying that bead down. I get enough to where I know this is going to be enough for my smile line, and I don't want to say I play with it, but I am tapping it so I can go ahead and start the process of having a flush cuticle area while my bead sets. For a bead to set, what that means is it's stiffening up. It's the process of polymerization, so that way it's not so loose and runny. Okay, and once it's kind of set into like a more Play-Doh-ish consistency, that's when you want to start molding, because what we have to realize is that we are working with something that dries by air. Okay, when the powder and the liquid come together, they polymerize, and those bonds basically strengthen and harden up is what we're seeing, and the air is a factor in that. Okay, so whereas like builder gel and stuff like that, you'll have to go ahead and dry it, cure it in the lamp. Acrylic dries with air, so I will not suggest you to use any type of speed products with this, especially if you're new. And honestly, there's no reason to really be using speed anything for real, because you don't have a lot of wiggle room, but again, that is your choice. So as it sets, I'm making sure that I am obtaining the shape that I like, which I said I am going for a more like tapered, like a more oval shape. But you can see at the tops, I'm basically pushing it. How can I explain this? Okay, you see in the tops how there is space on the sides of the smile line up into the cuticle area. On shorter nails, honestly, in acrylic French period, if you don't have that, what's going to happen is that space up there, right at the very tip. If you don't have that, what's going to happen is when you go to like put down the other half of the color for the tips, when you file, you are going to be potentially filing away color that you need on the sides. Or what's going to also happen is it's not going to look like a seamless French tip to where like the color is up into the cuticles, like how you paint it, right? It's going to look like the color is literally just on the very tip, and it's kind of going to look like a cigarette. I don't know if that makes sense, but you know how cigarettes are literally like the nude and the white, but the white don't go up into the nude. It's literally just nude and then flat out white. I personally don't care for that look, so just to kind of avoid that, I do make sure that on the smile line I have it starting at a higher point. See up there, I really pronounce that because I want the color to be there, so the color you can see the color from all sides. Okay, now the only thing is, if you do it too narrow to where the smile line is too narrow and you have too much space on the sides for the next color, what's going to happen is it's going to look stupid. You're going to be filing and realize the middle is way too skinny. I've had that happen in the past before as well. Okay, so again, we are tucking that color into the cuticles. You know, I've had in the past people like to comment on my YouTube channel like, oh, your cuticles are flooded. Are they? Because you tell me how flooded cuticles can last up to 5 weeks. They're not going to. Okay, I know I have videos like with using neon videos, black, using white, reds, all of those different types of colors, like I mentioned, always like baby pink as well. Those typically tend to be runnier and you have to know how to work with them. And then on top of that, like I said, this client has excess like cuticle skin, if you want to call it, even though it's not really the cuticles. Her eponychium has some dead skin on it basically, and so it will be removed when I file automatically, and I don't even have to do anything, but you guys will kind of see that later on, the difference. Okay, so at this point in time, I'm actually gonna let you guys watch the rest of well, you know what, I can't even say I'm gonna let you watch the rest of the freaking smile line shit, because I'm going to work, and when I come back, I just have the availability. I got the ability to like record where I left off, so I don't even know like why do I be saying that, and I'm finna come right back. So yeah, I will go ahead, I'm finna go to work. I got 2 more clients, and you guys, I am doing a day of what is this called, you know, like a day in the life, because I had enough clients to like actually show what I was doing, but still like enough time. I don't even know how to explain it. Not enough time between to like get it done, but yeah, I definitely had enough to show what was going on, and yeah, so I'm pretty excited about that. So I'll come back and holler at you in a minute. All right, so I'm back. I just got home, literally just got inside the house at 7:53, and we are continuing to go ahead and work on the smile line in the nail bed area. Okay, so as like a rule of thumb, when you're doing French and you're working with the smile line, you would like to see, okay, how do I explain this? The reason why the smile line is so important is because that's gonna be like the overall shape of your French, right? It don't matter what you do to the tip, like the tip is gonna be the tip, but this part is gonna be like, okay, how neat is your French? Okay, so you're gonna have to really like zone in to thinking about what is the correct ratio of like this quote unquote nail bed area, because right, with acrylic French, that's what this is supposed to represent, the natural nail bed, if you want to say that, and how much ratio of this to actual tip color. Now on shorter nails, I would say definitely not 50-50. I would say something more like 70-30 or 60-40, something like that, just because when you go ahead and file, more of the tip is going to be filed away. You see what I'm saying? So like, depending on how good or bad your application is, if you have to keep filing the tip to get it straight and get it good, if you have too much of the nail bed color, then you're going to have close to none tip color. Okay, but if your application is really good, and you know that it's going to be really good, I would suggest you don't have to worry about trying to put so much nail bed. Just put what you want it to look like, and you know your shaping is going to be like pretty good. But if you're nervous or if you're unsure, do a little bit less than what you would want, so that way you have room to shape around the tip and everything like that. Okay, but the ratio is key. That is like literally the whole most important part of this whole thing. And do not make it too thick. Like how I laid it is even still too thick, and you'll see later on, like when the application is done, it's gonna look a little thick, whatever. But the cuticle area part is fine, but like the shelf on the like by the smile line portion is a little bit too thick because these are short. So you have to keep that in mind. The thicker that you make them, like this is going to be your support. This is going to be a main part of your support, right? Because you need this to be thick enough so it will support the rest of the nail, but also thin enough so that way when you actually go ahead and file, it's not going to take you forever to get rid of the part where the tip color and the nail bed like overlap. You see what I'm saying? So I learned that like literally the hard way, thinking like, oh, it doesn't matter, and it does. And when I do the tip color, I'm gonna tell you why it matters. So do the thickness, not what you think the whole nail needs to be, because you're still gonna put the tip color there, but just to a degree that's gonna be, oh Lord, my phone is gonna go off right now, you guys. Someone's liking posts. I think it's my boyfriend. He's about to like some posts. So what was I saying? Okay, so yeah, this is like a crucial part in this whole process. So you see how the acrylic is still not all the way dry yet, and you have time to work with it. Yeah, so you guys see exactly what it looks like, and I'm gonna go ahead and like go into the next part, which is filing the smile line. Now some people don't do this, and honestly I technically don't have to, but honestly it's gonna give you a much crisper shape. Because remember, this is your smile line. If you are painting it, this is what you'd be painting. You'd be painting this line and then filling in the tip, but we're not doing that. So you want to get this nice and crisp and clean, and honestly it's to enhance the fact that we want these all 10 to be the same shape and size. Another thing that I forgot to mention is you want to do all the nail beds first. Do all 10, because it's nothing worse, and I've been in this predicament, it's nothing worse than doing one whole hand, filing, putting the color on the tip, and then realizing you kind of can't see how long or anything because the tip color has crossed over onto the nail bed portion, and you're realizing like, damn, I kind of messed up. You know what I'm saying? So do all 10 of the smile lines. Ow, sorry you guys, my blanket got stuck to one of my piercings. So do all 10 of the smile lines, and do all 10 filing, and then do the tip on all 10, because number one, that's going to ensure that everything is dry enough to file, because if you do not do this when everything is completely dry, you are going to be sad. I'm gonna tell you right now, you're going to be sad if you try and file acrylic period that's not done filing, that's not done drying. You're going to be sad, just simply because it's going to be a wobbly, like it might feel like, oh, this is dry enough, but dry enough is not the same thing as fully dry. So yeah, keep that in mind. So you can see I'm making sure that each one is the right shape and size that I like, and this is like a second chance. If you did not get the shape perfectly how you wanted it in the first time, this is like a second chance to be able to adjust that, because sometimes there are times where you might do one way and another nail another way, because you simply like two different ways. Like, oh, do I want it like to be a little longer, or do I want it to be slimmer? And so this is a time where you can choose, like, do I want these a little shorter? Do I want this a little bit slimmer? Do I want them rounder? Or, you know, do I have enough space? See up there? You need space. That's what I was talking about earlier. So you can put the color in those little corner areas, so that way it doesn't just look like the secondary color is just strictly at the tip. Okay, because when we draw French tips, remember, we like to come from the top. If not, then you're gonna have like a more traditional old school looking French. And to be honest, when people say, oh, I want French, that's not exactly what they're looking for, unless they specifically say that. But a lot of times, even that type of French, that's not exactly what people was looking for. But that little fake ass line across halfway down the nail, nobody wants that. Okay, so let's not give people that, and they don't want it. Yeah, we want to make sure that everything is the right shape and size, and you guys are going to see me here like measure up against the other ones. Yeah, because I like to make sure, like, granted, every finger is not the same length or size, but we want it to be pretty close to the exact same, okay? Because that is going to greatly affect the overall look, because you will be able to tell if one, okay, granted, if one is like a smidge longer or a smidge less oval or like a little off, people are not going to necessarily notice, so you have a little wiggle room. But if one is pointing one way or the other way, and I've also learned to, like, I don't have to check with my hand facing towards the client anymore, but if you're not sure on if your Frenches are straight or not, and by that I mean like, is your smile line centered? Because there have been times where I've done this process and by the end I'm realizing, wow, not only are these bulky, but my smile line look like it's pointing to the right or to the left, you know? So you can turn the hand around, like with the nails facing you. So basically, not the palm towards you, put the palm towards the client and look at it, and that will be able to tell you. It's gonna look kind of weird, but if you are unsure of your skills, it's gonna humble you real quick, okay? Whether you're drawing French or doing it in acrylic, that's gonna be the best way. So like I said, I don't typically have to do it, but sometimes I still do check. If I feel like something's like a smidge off, I'm gonna check. So you see we have the smile lines pretty close to the same. The length of the nail is pretty similar. And like I said, it's all about ratios, and that's gonna give you the best result. When someone looks at the set and like, wow, those Frenches look good, it's usually because the smile line is crisp and clean. The ratio of the nail bed to the tip, you see how nice that looks already? Okay, so next color you already know is not polish, not nothing. That's what colors I like. Yeah, this client happened to choose like a pink on pink French, and at first I was gonna be nervous because the initial like pink that she was kind of interested in, like the combos. So it took her a couple of tries. She's actually a hairdresser, so you know, they study color theory and stuff. So I kind of realized like, oh, okay, cool, like this is a cute color combo. But yeah, at first I was nervous. I was like, girl, what type of pinks? But I didn't have to like guide her or nothing. She came to this conclusion on her own, for those who are wondering about the color combination. So now that we have this, right, this is the part that you can be a little more relaxed on, but not too relaxed, okay? Because there have been times in the past where I have tried to like, oh, I'm just gonna slap this on there, and do not just do that, because the thing about it is, if you put this to the same thickness as the nail bed, the smile line, you're gonna regret it, because you're gonna be filing for a long time and it's going to be thick. So do you see how I'm kind of like just tucking it into those corners? And the way I'm checking, is it thick enough? I am looking at the tip. So when you see me like lift the nail up, it's because I'm looking at the very tip, like where the C curve is at, because I'm trying to see, is this thick enough or would this break? So you can see I'm looking in all different angles. I'm keeping the shape of the nail, and then I'm gonna go into like the corners up here near the sidewalls, and I'm putting a decent sized bead there, because although that's an area that should remain thin, if you don't put enough acrylic, this color is going to completely file away, and then that means you will have empty sides, which means you will have no support for the side of your nail, because this part of the nail, people forget, is crucial as far as support. So if it's too thin, that means you will be prone to getting cracks in the sides of the nails, which will aid in the nail snapping off, okay? So I kind of just tuck it into that pocket and let it set for a second, and then I will clean up what should not be there. But if it's too watery, see how I'm like cleaning up what shouldn't be there? If it's too watery, this will completely take the color away as well. So you need to like set it there, let it settle, and then go in and get rid of any, you know, thickness or flooding, but let it kind of set there for a second, so that way you can have that. So right now you can see it looks very thick, but I'm making sure that we are sidewall to sidewall with color coverage, because that's another way to get a poorly looking French. A poorly done looking French is you don't have enough color, okay? It just looks like, okay, you know, what is this, whatever. So once again, take a decent sized bead, but it's not going to be the same thickness as the tip of like the shelf of the smile line. I personally like to start this way, put a bead in the middle, let it settle, and guide it upwards as I'm keeping the shape. This way it guarantees my strength, and then on top of that, I'm not overwhelmed by, oh my gosh, there's acrylic going everywhere, especially for a shorter length of nails, okay? I do it the same way for longer lengths and everything like that. And as you can see, I'm checking the sides to make sure everything is of a proper thickness for the side of the nail and the sidewalls of the natural nail, because if not, your nails will snap. So if you have problems, see how I'm checking? It's because I'm checking, is that tip the right thickness? You'll be able to see on the very end, you'll be able to see, like, is this a good enough layer of acrylic? If it's too thin to where like the tip is showing through, obviously add more. But you do not want to match it to the same thickness as this shelf we have going with the smile line. It will take you forever to get your nail to a natural looking thickness, okay? I'm telling you, for a reason. So we want to just go ahead and get a decent sized bead. Once again, you see how I'm putting it into that corner, swiping away what I don't want, because again, yes, the colors are going to cross over, but we also don't want just like a thick ass layer of pink on top of that smile line. So yeah, I'm just gonna like tuck it in, and then I am just gently guiding it around, so that way it's gonna stay in place, but I have it in the right areas. Okay, now don't be alarmed if the nails look thicker, a little thicker than what you want them to be, because at the end of the day, this right here is gonna have the appearance that it's bulking it out some. But that's why we put a good enough bead and a good enough layer of acrylic that when we go and file, we'll be able to slim out and debulk the smile lines, but debulk the sides over here, and it will leave us with a natural finish, but we will still have the right amount of coverage. Okay, so if you haven't guessed already, like I said, you know, this is a very detailed, in-depth video, and so I just want to make sure you guys know, like, this process does not have to take as long as you think. Like, yes, I am going slower, you know, I am kind of taking my time. However, I can get, like, it's common that French tips this way takes a long time, but me personally, I can get French done in like an hour 45 to 2 hours, depending on the length. So I think this time around it probably did take 2 hours, because I'm trying to really be careful with the pink not staining anything, and they are also short and her nail beds are wider, so it takes a lot more care and patience than someone that has, you know, a smaller nail bed size, just doing a classic nude and white or pink and white French, you know. So you kind of have to put all those things in the back of your mind to not get overwhelmed, because there are some times where, you know, with doing sets that take a lot more caution, and it's a lot more tedious, and just steps after steps after steps, sometimes I personally get overwhelmed, and it makes me to the point of like, oh my gosh, like, I'm never gonna be done. Like, even though I be on autopilot, there are days where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, this is taking forever. So to kind of combat that, what I do is I start with that first initial, right, the smile line, get out the way. I'm like, whoo, okay, because that's like doing, it's like doing 2 full sets at once, because you have to lay the acrylic, let it dry, file the smile line, lay the acrylic, let it dry, file, finish, file, do everything. It's almost like twice, right? So once I get that smile line laid down, all right, with the nail bed area, I'll like, okay, let me stretch. I'm gonna take my couple videos, and that's my break, because you guys know I record content on every single person. So I'll kind of just like chill, and I'll be like, okay, I'm just gonna clean my brush or something and put it off to the side. And then going into filing the nail beds area, I think of it as like, okay, you know, this is a little quicker, a little easier. And so I kind of walk myself mentally through the steps of like, all right, you're almost done. And sometimes I do speak it out loud. I say it out loud. Clients don't mind, like, be honest with them, you know. So there's sometimes where I will just take a second, go on my phone, you know, finish the conversation with the client, and then move on to the next portion, because otherwise you're gonna get extremely overwhelmed, especially when you're first learning, and you know, people aren't in a time crunch or anything like that. And I've learned, me personally, when you book an appointment with me, it's only going to take so long. Like, nothing that I do is going to take more than 3 hours as far as a set, unless you're booking like obviously other services. So if any of you have been on my booking site, or if you want to check it out, all of my services have the exact time listed. So for me, it keeps me on track of like, okay, this is where we're going. You know, I'll check the time, make sure. Application and all that should be done within the first hour, the hour 15, and that will keep me on track in general with like designs and stuff. And then with the shaping and stuff, you know, blah blah blah. Okay, and with French, obviously it's gonna take a little bit longer than that, from like the start. Okay, so the hour 15 is from when they come into the room to when they do through application. That should be in the first hour. Okay, That's how I look at it. So this is what I mean by, like, you see how I file around her cuticle area and more of the skin looks like it's flaking off? I'm not doing anything to make this happen, as you can see. It just is because of how her cuticle area sits. I tucked the acrylic in, so the e-file is naturally going to graze along that, but like along her skin over there. But and that's nothing bad. It's just those people who have you know, excess skin that kind of poke out, it just automatically gets got, which is why I don't nip, I don't do anything like that. So I am holding my e-file, I guess they call it parallel, I'm sitting it flush, so that way I can go around, and I am carefully moving from different areas, so that way I don't accidentally file any of the color off. I go underneath, make sure that everything is exactly how I like it on the sides, and you can see, yeah, these look thick. You can see how much of the nail bed area is actually still sticking off, okay? And my trick to actually being able to get them to a nice natural like thickness, because the apex area is fine, the cuticle area is fine, it's really just the middle of the nail needs work, right? And I could have made them a little bit thinner, but because the nails are also short, I needed to give myself a little bit of something to work with, like, so that way I can actually file around. So I like to hand file the middle. Yes, it does take a little bit more, you know, manpower, but I don't like using the drill on excessively high speeds, because you have to use it on such of a high speed that it can cause heat spikes, and also it can cause denting. And I think that's something people don't talk about enough. People encourage you guys, oh, just use your e-file, just turn it up. The reason why I do not fully encourage that, you won't hear me necessarily say that, is because people don't talk about, if you're not using your e-file properly, or even if you are and you're not realizing it, sometimes you're creating your own problems. Because if you think about it, this e-file, it's barrel shaped, okay? And because it is barrel shaped, you putting it in the middle, that's great that it will remove product, but it's not touching as much surface area as a naturally flat, like, regular file. And so when I rub that file over, or I should say when I use it, you know, to file over the whole entirety of the nail, it reaches more surface area, so more of the area gets flat all at once. Versus with this, depending on how you roll back and forth and what angle you go at, it can take away product too quickly, too low, and unevenly sometimes. So I realized that's not for me. I'm a person that literally only uses the e-file for certain parts of the nail. That's just me in general, because I used to hand file exclusively for a while when I first started doing nails. And so I realized I really like that result. I don't really care for the result of what the e-file gives me, because I realized I'm not a person that slaps extremely thin amounts of acrylic on the nail and then expect it to be good and whatever. So yeah, you can see from the other angles that, like, you know, that smile line area is on the thicker side, but it's gonna get handled, okay? So you really want to make sure that your cuticle area is nice and flush. If not, if it's chunky and bulky, like I said, all the things I'm telling you guys, like, oh, you don't want to do this, it's because I've been through it. The first acrylic French tip set that I did, it took about 4 hours, okay? And it wasn't fun, and I absolutely hated it, all right? So yeah, okay, so you can see how I'm filing her, right? Once again, she has nail beds on the larger side. Imagine if I would just throw a taper on this shape just to do it. It's gonna throw off the whole French. It's not gonna look right, and it's not going to look flattering. So this is why I said in the last video, if you have not watched it, I suggest that you do, because it gives some great tips for those who are struggling on clients that do not have, you know, a really cute and dainty nail bed, because it does take some work depending on different types of nail beds. And I keep trying to tell people that, and it makes a difference. But yeah, so anyways, you see how I'm filing on the sides, and it's taking away some of that bulk. But also, just imagine if I would file too much and you won't be able to see that pink on the side, right? It's gonna literally just look like nothing. It's gonna look like the tip, and that's it. It's not gonna look as flattering, okay? And so you can see how I'm looking from different angles, and it's already debulked to a nice amount. And so I'm gonna let it stay there, and because I am gonna like pretty much do this process like twice. I'm gonna file through, I'm gonna debulk that middle part, you're gonna see me use my e-file, and then I'm gonna kind of do it again because I want as natural of a result as possible, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and keep I'm gonna file to the shape that we already have here. Now is not the time to try and switch up the shape or do anything different because of how things are going and stuff like that. Because I don't even know if I'm saying that. I'm trying to read my text message at the same time as this. It's not working. So we're gonna scratch that. Let me look and see what we're doing. Wow, that was crazy. I feel like I just bold-faced lied to y'all. But anyway, so yeah, while you're doing this, you want to make sure you see how much surface area that I'm getting, and it's getting it all at once pretty evenly. It's really useful because, you know, even though an e-file, like I said, it could be quicker, and I don't want to take that away from y'all, but I feel like this is just more efficient as far as the look. Just just for me personally. Now, this particular nail was giving me a little trouble because I felt like the tip was kind of bulked out and it wasn't getting as square as I wanted it. And I'm like, what the hell? So with the sides, I'm like, let me go ahead and bring the sides in some, right? And this is an example of, I'm not putting a taper on the sides, but I am bringing them in. I'm still following the same shape of what's there, but due to the acrylic, it kind of bulked it up. Like how I laid the acrylic, bulked it up in a sense, and then me going and debulking the sides just made, like the sides where the actual natural nail is, it just made that more obvious. So I don't want y'all to take that as, oh, but you're tapering that one, because I'm really not. I'm just correcting a not a mistake, but I'm just correcting a part of the process that happened during the application. All right, so don't take that as, oh, just, you know, we're not doing all that. Okay, so once again, this is a trial and error process. You're not going to get good off of one person, two people, whatever. Look, I have been doing this particular type of French for at least the past 2 years, and it probably wasn't into like a solid, I don't know, 8 months into it that I felt more confident to, like, when I look back on my work, I'm like, damn, whose was that, you know? So you need to go ahead and look, see how I'm really looking. Look at what the nail is showing you. Even though that shape looked incredible and my client was so happy, she's actually a first-time client, she's like, wow, these already look so good. You want to make sure everything is nice and even. You want to make sure things look good for that nail. And once again, with wider nail beds, you do have to work a little bit harder because you want it to be flattering on them and not give them that traditional, you know, flared out, wonky looking square that, you know, sometimes the shops, or honestly even independent nail techs, have not mastered, just because they only do certain types of nails or certain people's nails, or, you know, not doing short nails. I keep telling people, stop saying no to short nails. I know you feel like it's not going to make you the same amount of money, but I don't charge any less just because these French tips are short. And people seem to forget, like, oh, why French tips is a basic set. Did this look basic to you, bro? I just did 2 full sets in once, and I'm not a person that charges like skyrocketing prices, but at the same time, no, this is not a basic set. Yeah, it takes a while. And then she was like, oh, I see why you charge X, Y, and Z. Or, oh, I see why. It's like, yeah, and they come out in the end exactly. I mean, I feel like my French tips come out like 10 out of 10. Like every nail comes out almost pretty identical, just for the simple fact that I'm so tedious. So, you know, that is something that you have to kind of get clients to understand, like, hey, this is not a basic set. Even though it looks basic in the simple part of like, oh, it's just 2 parts. Yeah, there's a reason why a lot of people are not good at it, because like it is hard. Okay, it's hard to learn, it's hard to master, and you have to be patient. And this is not something that you can get in a rush. Now, if somebody is in extreme rush, I will just go ahead and paint it on, because I feel like I can rush through the basic set. Okay, it ain't nothing to slap some acrylic down and shape it, like, you know, that's not nothing. And you can take your time on drawing the French later. But I do not suggest doing this if you are in a rush, especially if you're a beginner, because both parts of the nail have to be fully dry before doing this. So even if you rush through it, you're not going to get even better of a result, because if the nail bed part is not dry, you cannot continue to the next part of shaping it. And even if you decide, oh, it looks so perfect, I'm not going to shape, and you put that other acrylic on, if that initial part is not dry, the second acrylic can like morph into it. So let's say if I were to just put the pink right after I put, okay, they're both pink. Let's say if I put the brighter pink down right after putting the light pink, what's gonna happen is that they're gonna dry together. So it's gonna be really, like, they're gonna mix somewhat, you know what I'm saying? So just keep that in mind. Like I said, I go in, I'm gonna compare all the sizes, make sure they're all the same length. I do have all the like the smile line to be such a similar length that when I go in and shorten other nails, it's not gonna necessarily throw off the whole entire look, because that's something you have to be careful of too. Like if you made all of the actual nails the same length with the tip, but you accidentally messed up on the smile line or the different lengths, and then you go in and shape, you could possibly have everything be the same shape and size as far as the size of the nail, but it will look unproportionate because the ratio of the tip to the nail bed color. Okay, so that's what we're gonna end off with. Okay, so this is after shaping. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was a long one, but you guys voted and you said this is what you wanted to see. Okay, so hopefully these tips help you to go ahead and master your acrylic French tip. I know you guys, it's Halloween weekend, it's Friday, it's 8:20. Y'all please be safe. This is the final result. Binge watch some other videos, I got plenty. I'll be uploading all weekend, and as usual, you guys, I appreciate y'all, and I'll see you in the next one.